Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Hidden Leaders Forgotten Legends. Forgotten Legends is the expansion to Hidden Leaders, a game that was on Kickstarter, and Forgotten Legends is a game that will be on Kickstarter. I'll have a link to the description. I'll have a link in the description down below. This is a prototype, all rules, components, all that stuff, subject to change. Forgotten Legends is a modular-based prototype. It's a modular-based expansion. It's an expansion that introduces 3 different modules to the base game of Hidden Leaders. The first is adding a new leader to the game, and this is where I guess I'll go ahead and give you a 1-minute overview of what Hidden Leaders is, in case you don't know, so that you can understand the rest of this review. Otherwise, you can check out my original review on the game, or plenty of other content on the game. But Hidden Leaders, before we get into Forgotten Legends, Hidden Leaders is a game which you are taking on the role of a few possible pathways, a few possible leaders in the game. You're going to have these cards over here, each with 2 possible leaders that you can be. So if you're assigned this person over here, you have to try to win as either of those factions. That's what the players are all playing together on a shared board as they play out a ton of cards in the game, trying to play their various heroes in the game in order to influence the board state. Because in the game, you can win in one of a few ways depending on the leaders. You can win by moving the markers up and down the track, by having too much combat, by having too much death. There's a few ways you can have in the game as far as the end game state, and as the players all play their cards and take their turns and play their actions, they're all influencing the game state, while being mindful of the 2 victory conditions in which they can win. When the game is over and you eventually see who won, which leader won, and again, a leader is not a player, it's a faction in general, at that point the players reveal, all the players who have that faction will reveal their leader, showing, look, I'm eligible for winning, and whoever has the most heroes in the chosen faction will win the game. So it's a game of trying to hide some degree of information so that people don't know exactly how to stop you, while also trying to ensure that your faction or factions win, while trying to ensure that you have the most heroes in that faction. Combine that with a whole bunch of powers and abilities, just tons and tons of powers and abilities from all the cards, and that's basically what Hidden Leaders is as the original game state. From here, we move to this game over here, the Forgotten Legends expansion, which introduces, like I said already, 3 modules. The first module is a new leader. You're going to have a new leader, which we have these cards over here. We have a new leader that these cards are going to be mixed in, and these are the smaller cards. The base game that I have is the Kickstarter version, so I have both, but these are the smaller cards. You'll mix them with your other leaders over there, and then you have new leaders, the Guardian faction. Each of the factions can be mixed with a Guardian faction, and so now you have a different leader type in play and a different faction to be mindful of as you go through the game. So you're still trying to win as one of the other factions, but now a Guardian faction is mixed in with all the other factions, giving you 4 new leaders and bringing the total up to 10 possible leaders, also making it harder to predict exactly what's going on. As far as the Guardian faction in the game, you're going to have this faction over here, this Guardian, where as the Guardian cards come out, as you activate the abilities of these Guardian cards over here, you're going to start moving that Guardian marker up on the track slowly but surely, but eventually, as heroes die, as Guardian heroes die specifically, you're going to roll the Guardian die and then potentially lose anywhere from 1, lose 2, or lose nothing as far as your Guardian adjustment. So as you use Guardians, they become more powerful, and Guardian cards in general are a drop more powerful, but as Guardians die, the Guardian faction moves down, and so that introduces a new balance element to the game, another thing to be mindful of, but also players want to dive into that Guardian faction to benefit from their abilities, whether or not you actually have a Guardian leader, but you may pay the cost for doing so. And that's the first element being introduced. The first module is that Guardian faction. The second module is corruption. You'll have this corruption token over here where, depending on the player count, you can have different options for how the corruption enters the game, but you're going to be drawing these corruption cards from the game. These corruption tokens will go on heroes in different ways, and they'll have different impacts on them as far as potentially changing their faction, killing other people who kill those heroes. They're going to have a bunch of abilities on those corruption tokens that will adjust the heroes they are placed on. So it adds a modular element that messes with the heroes in play in one way or another, potentially altering different aspects or giving them abilities or consequences to take into account as you go through the game. That's the corruption module over there. And then lastly, we have the Relics. The Relics is going to be these set of cards over here that come into play with a variety of tokens you get for each relic, depending on that shown over there. But relics will give you abilities. You can go through different options. You can go ahead and bury any hero over there. You can shuffle the deck over there, shuffle the discard pile, search the discard pile, and take any one card into your hand, and then shuffle the discard pile again. You have these different cards. They'll give you different abilities, but they're all limited to the uses you have. These are the relics that can be introduced to the game. That's the third module you have, and that's basically the 3 modules that Forgotten Legends is adding: a new faction, a new leader, the corruption, and then the relics as well. Those are all being added added to the game, which is a good time to go ahead and jump to the review, the new elements, what I think of them, how they add to your experience. In general, my opinion of Hidden Leaders, you can check out my review of that. My opinion of Hidden Leaders is it's a solid game of quick card play, gives you a variety of things to do. It does have strategic deduction. Strategic deduction is the element. It's present in a few games. It's present in Veiled Fate. It's present in Clans. It's not a very common mechanic, but strategic deduction is the idea that through figuring out what a player does, you can have a better influence on the outcome. You don't have to figure out what they are. It's not hidden role like Resistance or One Night Open World for Blood on the Clock Tower. It's not that you have to figure out who someone is, but if you do, it can influence your strategy and give you a better leg up over the other players. So if I know that you're vying for these two factions, I have a better opportunity to get in your way and stop you from winning the game. So it's helpful but not required. And Hidden Leaders has that. And that mechanic in general, I have not loved in games. I found it often leads to an interesting balance of the balance of trying to be obvious with your move versus trying to hide it, and I find generally being a little bit more obvious tends to win out or over the subterfuge and therefore the inefficiencies of the subterfuge in the game. I do find that Hidden Leaders is fast playing enough and light enough that I do still enjoy it despite that, but the element of strategic deduction in general is one that I have liked the concept of but never loved the games involved. Hidden Leaders is one that I enjoy because of the card play, because of the abilities, while enjoying the elements but also not taking the game too seriously. As far as the expansions add, as far as the modules that the expansions add, first of all, the extra leader, love that over there. Just introducing more leaders to the game, because of the fact that in Hidden Leaders, every single card already has 2 leaders to be mindful of, it means that introducing 4 more really introduces a much higher degree of uncertainty into the game. When you're playing through the game in the original game, it's kind of almost, someone for sure has that power, someone for sure has that aspect, and through introducing these new leaders for the first time in Hidden Leaders, you suddenly have that real possibility, the real consequence that the faction that's winning, no one even has that power. You have that real constant possibility, the real idea that someone might be pushing something forward in a way that doesn't actually influence things. It introduces more uncertainty to the game state in a way that I do like. So overall, new leaders, overall a good thing, no bad side whatsoever. As far as the relics, again, just a pure plus for me. I like powers and abilities, and the relics is just classic powers and abilities. Just here's more options. I want to see more of them. I don't know what the Kickstarter will have as far as being added extra stuff or whatnot, but I'd love to see more relics just for variety's sake. But more powers and abilities, always a good thing as far as I'm concerned, and having these limited use means they have an impact on the game state, a consequence in the game state, but not over the top in terms of how much they impact the game. Corruption is the one that I'm least certain about. I like some of the elements that Corruption does, but I find Corruption feels a bit more fiddly compared to the other 2 modules. The first 2 modules, or first and third, or however you put them, but the leaders and the relics, overall just pure pluses, no negatives as far as I'm concerned. I can see someone not loving either one of those. If you want more certainty in your game state, you might not like the leaders. If you want less powers and abilities and more control, well, this probably isn't your game to begin with, but then maybe the relics aren't for you. But for me, those are both solid additions. Corruption is the one where I'm happy to play with, but also happy to not play with that one. That one's one where I find that the idea of Corruption I like, but the extra management of it and just putting tokens on cards and being mindful of it, I found that what Corruption added to the game, and it does add to the game, I do like the things it does, also is countered by the extra fiddliness and extra game maintenance going on throughout the game in a way that it was a small plus and a small minus, and those kind of, I'm far more neutral on it. Not negative, I'm just more neutral on Corruption. That one's more of a take it or leave it module for me. And that's the expansions. We have Forgotten Legends, 3 different modules, all of which add to the game. None of them really change my rating in any strong way. We have, again, solid pluses from the relics and the leaders, but not necessarily enough to change my rating in any way. This is Hidden Leaders, Forgotten Legends. You can check this out on Kickstarter. As noted already, this is a prototype, all rules, components, and all that stuff subject to change. And until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.